Okay. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here today. We are excited to share the data that we've collected so far from our air quality sensor network, the UCF STAIR Smart and Trustworthy Air Quality Network. I'm here today with Dr. Thomas Breyer and Dr. Haofei Yu. We're all working together on this project. Next slide. So again, I know a lot of you are familiar with our project, but it is a National Science Foundation grant. The project runs to 2023 to set up a low-cost air quality sensor network here in Orlando and surrounding area. Right now our sensors are measuring fine particulate matter, and we currently have 47 sensors installed across Orlando. We've had to make some major updates to the hardware and code. I know for those of you who have sensors in your yard, we've been by a few times to make some updates. But our sensors are working for the most part, and we have some great data we're excited to share with you today. We do have about another 25 sensors we'll be installing soon. So if you're on our list and we haven't gotten to your house yet, we're planning on still coming by. We also have about 18 sensors we're going to be installing on city property, which will help extend the reach of our network throughout Orlando. Another aspect of this project is we want to work with citizens on how to use the data that our sensor network is collecting for advocacy and for clean air and neighborhood advocacy. And then at the end of the presentation, we're going to talk just a little bit more about our future steps with citizen advocacy and community participation. Next slide. So I wanted to show you real quick where our sensors are located. We have the green dots are where our sensors are currently located. And this is a really close-in view of our sensor network in downtown Orlando, since that's where we have the highest density of our sensors. But the blue triangles indicate the areas that we will be setting up our sensors on city property. These are usually fire stations or police stations located throughout the community. And we hope to be setting those up in the next month or two. I also want to highlight we've had a lot of really wonderful partners on this project, including the city of Orlando and Orange County, but also a lot of wonderful community partners, which have helped us find participants to host our sensors, work with us on how to run this project, how to engage with citizens on this. And again, really want to thank everyone for their participation on this so far. Next slide. Turn it over to Haofei, who's going to talk about the website, hosting the data, and how to interpret the data. Go ahead, Haofei.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Like Kelly mentioned, we really appreciate all your support. This project has been going on for a few years, and because of the pandemic, we had many delays and many other obstacles we have jumped through. So I really appreciate everybody's patience with us. So now this is, he's shown here is our data website where you can just go in there and check the data, and it usually is refreshed in real time with a delay, maybe a few minutes. So this is our project website, which you can learn more about our project, but who is involved and things like this. So now if you're interested, you can scan this QR code. This QR code is for the data website, which you can take a look at the data. Now, if you don't mind, let me quick share my screen and look at what the data website looks like. Now here is our data website where what you can do is just click overview the map, and will show up all the maps. Show up all the sensors having installed. You can zoom in and zoom out a little bit. A few things I want to mention is that you can tell we have many sensors scattered around Orlando. You have different circles, and each circle representing one location where the sensor was installed. And you can, if you click on the circle, you can take a look at, what is the last time. For example, this one was updated about 10 minutes ago. And in there, we have 3 sensors. It also measures temperature, humidity, and data. What you can do is also you can click view data history. And then you can look at what the history looks like in the past up to 7 days. And you can look at the PM 2.5 and PM 10 also. I want to mention that PM 2.5 is a primary target. PM 10 is rather the data is collected, but the data accuracy is maybe not as good as PM 2.5. So a few things with our network is you can see we have sensor installed in other areas too. Sometimes we have one sensor installed, and we can combine and relocate it. We combine, switch to a different one. And here you can see, you can show only data in the past week. Now, if you click it, you see some sensor will disappear because that sensor has been active. Last time it's active, it's over a week ago. So it can be removed. So it makes the website less clustered, clustered. So, all right, let me jump back to the slides. So you can access this website anytime, and this website will show all the data we have. So essentially, right now, this is a very preliminary data what we have been collected in the past many months. This is the average concentration. Now, a few things I want to mention is that first is the particle PM2.5 concentration around the Orlando area is actually quite low, which even in some areas we anticipate higher concentrations. So even though you see some red colors here, but it does not mean it's very high concentration. Rather, it's relatively high compared to the average. That's another reason we didn't show the legend here. We didn't show the absolute number levels here because it's relatively low. And I want to mention that this is just preliminary data. We still want to do a better job calibrating it. So we, because it's local sensor, we don't want put too much trust in the data set. And before we confident that we can get high quality data. So another thing is that, as mentioned, overall, what we see is particle concentration is relatively low. We have sensors located next to I-4, next to 408. Even during rush hours, we do not see very high concentrations. But we do see high concentration from time to time. Sometimes we see pollution peak at a rush hour. This is anticipated because at rush hour you have a lot more cars, so you will see relatively higher concentrations. And particularly if you have events going on, sometimes we see a high concentration. So such event will be a July 4th firework, for example. In the July 4th firework, what we see is actually, you can see that this is at night of July 4th. We only show some of them here. We see the particle concentration peaked across all the sensors in this region. And in some areas, even reach hardest level, meaning the concentration is a little bit, it's quite unhealthy, especially for very sensitive populations. This apparently is because of firework and quickly go back to normal after midnight. So this is what we see so far. A few more words on the colors of different circles. So the number we show here is actually measured pollution concentrations in microgram per cubic meter. The color is actually corresponding to different levels of concern. So maybe we can show it here. So if the color is green, it simply means it's a good level, it's a satisfactory pollution level. If color is yellow, it means moderate, it's okay. But some people, like say, have severe asthma, they be unusually sensitive to the pollution. If it goes to orange, it's become unhealthy for sensitive groups, and they may experience some health impacts. Generally public, usually it's not, it's okay. It can go even further to red. This is become unhealthy. Those sensitive groups, like such as asthma mentioned, they may experience more onset of health impacts. If you go back to further to very unhealthy, it's a risk for everyone. The top is the highest health level is maroon, it's hardest level. And in this level, it's hardest, and everyone will likely be impacted. So, as mentioned, so again, so the numbers showing in here are real measured concentrations, but the colors corresponding to different, we call it air quality index, AQI. The index level are predefined by EPA. So it's give you idea, how the general population level is. So a few more things I want to get out of the way is first is we have to be careful when interpreting the data. Technically, it is the local sensors. So we reference grade equipment are quite expensive. So local sensor data, they are useful, but they're not accurate. For example, here it is, we run a local sensor alongside the reference equipment for a few days. So this is hourly average concentration. What we can see is the reference equipment in blue, the local sensor is a little bit orange. So you see, although the local sensor measurement basically follows up down of the reference equipment, but you do see there are differences, and the differences are inconsistent. Now, this is the message we're trying to get through. We hope we can do a better job. We can. One of the purpose of this project is we hope to design some sort of algorithm based on the computer models, and we be able to calibrate the local sensor rating so it approaches low reference equipment. But no matter what we do, it's impossible to be as accurate as reference equipment because of the cost restrictions. So we want to emphasize that the data from local sensors, they can be used for regulatory purposes. For example, determine if this region is in violation of Clean Air Act. We can do that. It's not as accurate. But we are working. We're doing some more work to try to improve data quality. And even though they are still useful, it tells us generally what is the pollution level is, so we can take actions correspondingly. So another thing you may mention, you may notice that when we shoot the demo, you see that each unit has 3 sensors in there. The reason why we have 3 sensors is because they are local sensors. Sometimes they give you false high and lows. So for example, this is one of the sensors it's collecting from a few days ago. What you can see is the 3 sensors are rather consistent until around 3 p.m. or so. And you see the sensor 1 start giving very high ratings, and it keeps giving the fluctuating high ratings. But sensor 2 and 3, you don't see that. You don't see that. So this tells us sensor 1 is giving false highs. So sensor 2 and 3 are giving okay data. So this is the primary reason we put 3 sensors in there, because we anticipate this will happen. So we can compare data, we can filter out those false high and lows. So another thing I want to mention on the website, you will notice some sensors show up on the 2 lakes nearby. These are fake signals. The reason we do this is because when we put the sensor online, we put the sensor, it will show up on the lake, so we can locate them faster. And this is just some testing purposes. And each sensor unit has a GPS in there. So when it takes a few minutes for the GPS to find the right location, and the sensor will basically go back to the right location after the GPS log. We also put a lot of thought in the sensor design, and sometimes you may not find your sensor. If you have a sensor on your property, it may not be right there, and it may be going back to the lake. Likely it's because of the reboot. So we are testing, basically, we have QA/QC inside the sensor. Sometimes if abnormal condition are detected, for example, the sensor are not retaining data, if needed, the entire unit will reboot itself. When you reboot, the GPS signal is lost. So sometimes they go back to the lake and they will come back later. Just some caution. And sometimes you will see the sensor maybe offline, and this could be because likely it's because not enough sunlight. You will see some sensor will go offline at night, they will come back online during the day. It's because you have enough sunlight, the battery get recharged, it's come back online. If you see this, you can let us know. Another thing you can do is basically when the solar panel gets dirty, the solar output actually drops drastically. We see this quite often. So now, if you see the sensor offline, you want to get it back online. When you have sunlight, you can just wipe clean the solar panel, and you can usually just a small layer of dust will basically make the solar output much less. And see if it works. If it's not, let us know. We'll come by and we can switch to a bigger solar panel. The default panel is 10 watt. We have up to like 50 watts we can install just to make sure we have enough power in there. Another thing I want to mention is sometimes you will see a brief peak in concentrations. Usually it's not, don't panic, usually it's not a concern. Even say sometimes we see the concentration shoots really high. It could be due to many reasons, because the sensors, so they are quite small, so they are not on your property. They are not, isolated. If you have a sensor that's a reference grid that's been the URL is isolated in an area, so you people can come by and mess with the data. But because our sensor is quite open, and someone could get closer to the sensor, maybe smoking or even barbecuing. We see that actually. If you run a car, the car idling near the sensor, so you will see a peak. But usually the peak it only lasts for a few minutes or so. But usually, like I mentioned, it's not a concern. Usually, it becomes a concern if you see the peak persistent. The peak keeps high for a long time, for several hours. That may be a concern. Something's happening. If you don't see that, if you only see a short peak, don't worry. So if you have any question, we are always available. Just contact us. We'll come by and take a look at what's going on. Final point we want to mention that I know some some other commercial network they have a limited node, limited information they can provide for this area. So I want to mention our data will be different from other network. They're mostly because many of the network they don't show the actual data, they choose index. And how they calculate index is hard to know sometimes. They just show a number. Another thing is that we're using different sensors. So we are using the latest version we could find. We tested all kinds of different sensors before we choose it. And we also perform a bunch of data calibrations. And finally, how we sampling is quite different because we want to have the best quality data. So we design a sampling schedule. For one example would be first, when we take a measurement, we run the sensor for 30 seconds so we can purge all the dust accumulated on the inlet. So this way we can get better data, and you don't see this on commercial networks. So that's why our data will be different from other commercial network measurement. But again, if you have any questions, do let us know. We can always be reached at this email address. So Tom, you want to take over from here?
Thank you so much. So the last thing that we want to share with you here today is our plan to work with you, to work with the community, to use the data in a way that can benefit you as individuals, as households and residents in and around the city of Orlando, and to potentially affect policy change. Over the next few months, as the data become pushed out even more, as more people come to see the data that are available, we will be convening community events and conversations looking at the data to identify patterns, to identify areas of concern in particular neighborhoods. And we have a pot of money available in this project that we are going to provide to the community, $10,000 for investment in some kind of a broader advocacy plan to promote better air quality or better decision making using the air quality data of the kind that we're providing through this network. So this is something you can look forward to. Starting in the new year, we'll start to bring folks together to talk about what the data are actually showing us and to begin some active conversation around how the community can invest $10,000 in some specific actions that can be taken to promote better air quality in and around the city of Orlando. So you can look forward to that, and those announcements will be coming soon. Go to the next slide.
Okay. So I think that's it.
Yeah, and that's this is our contact information, the website again for the project, our email address for further information, airquality@ucf.edu, and we're happy to respond to any questions.